Thanks to David and to B&H for having me. It's good to be back here at my favorite camera store. I have been sort of leading a dual life photographically. As David said, I do events, but I've been traveling for 34 years. I started with a semester in Kenya with the National Outdoor Leadership School, which sort of turned me on to international travel. And I've done 6 major expeditions to Africa, including a 7-month trip across the whole continent. And I've been photographing the whole way, trying to photograph for my stock collection. I had been with Photonica, which got sucked up by Getty, and with a couple of other agencies. So I've been doing the travel thing for a long time. I'm usually able to get away in the wintertime for a couple of months, which is a slow season for events. So I try to do longer trips when possible so I can just immerse myself in a place and not have to worry about being on the road the whole time. I mean, constantly traveling. So earlier this year, and what we're going to see today are images from last February and March, 4 weeks in Burma or Myanmar, and 2 weeks in Singapore and Malaysia. So as I'm going through today, what I want to do is go through and show you the process and how Lightroom works in various stages along the way. The way I approach it is, since I've been doing this a long time, I started with film, and I guess I'm a little bit more selective about what I photograph than perhaps people who just started with digital and just can do the spray and pray thing. Because I'm also, I used to go out with 100 rolls of film, and that was going to last me for 6 months or whatever it was. And I didn't see those images until I got home. So right now I'm trying to travel as light as possible, so I don't carry the laptop with me. I have the luxury of seeing the LCD on the back of the camera, but that's about all I do as far as reviewing images while I'm on the road. It might be nice to have, as the computers are getting smaller, maybe get one and have it on the road so I can do some immediate stuff like metadata entry, so I can remember where I was and spellings and all that. But most of what I'm doing is when I get back that's when the digital darkroom part of the process starts. So I'm selective. I think before I shoot, there are certain situations where I can look at it and say, well, that's a nice subject, but the light is terrible, or it's beautiful light, but I don't have a subject, so you sort of have to let it go. And I found that makes the editing part easier. So I'm not spending hours, and I'm spending hours, but fewer hours at the computer. So basically, that's the use of Lightroom is to try to organize the images and enhance the images, but without spending hours and hours and hours correcting. I like to get it right in camera, and that's one way to do that is to start by working with white balance and knowing what I'm getting. And in order to do that, I have the Passport Color Checker by X-Rite. I don't know how many people are doing white balance or profiling cameras, but the card is used for 2 things. Before I start shooting it in any given lighting situation, I photograph the card, and when I'm back at the computer, you use one of, in this particular case, you use one of the neutral images to get your white balance. And once you have your white balance, that's a good step in the right direction, but it's even better if you create a custom profile for that camera's sensor in that specific lighting situation. So that's something that I do is when I get home. Each different lighting situation gets this at the start of it, and then when I'm home, it makes a tremendous difference. And you'll see when you, I'm not going to go into the details of that now, but on the X-Rite website, they have some, my friend Joe Brady has done some videos on how to use the color calibration and to go through the process. But you'll see the tones, especially some of the reds and the blues, they just shift a lot when you actually apply your own profile, and it's worth doing. It's a way to get consistent color, and even if you have matching camera bodies, the sensors are a little bit different, and so if you are color calibrating, everything is going to be exactly the same. And it's just makes the editing process easier because you're not doing all kinds of corrections. Let me start by saying I work with just one catalog, and I have all my images on an external drive. So when I'm in the field, I am backing up to a little Wolverine, and that's all. And I keep that separate from my camera bag. So when I get home, I download all the images and then I import them into Lightroom, into my main catalog. If you had a laptop with you while you're on the road, you could do things in Lightroom, and then whatever you have on that laptop, you can import that catalog into your major catalog. But this computer is my only computer, so it's just easier. I like to keep life simple. One main catalog for all the work that I do, and one drive with all my images. And where I see people getting confused is when they have a couple of different hard drives, and some images are on this and some are on this, and what's the most current one, and they have different versions of stuff, and it's just easier if you have one hard drive and then back that up, and you should have backups of your computer, your C drive, and you should have backups of your external drive. And just to point out to you, the Lightroom catalog is, when you back up your catalog, that's not backing up your images. It's a separate thing. So Lightroom defaults to putting it in your pictures or the My Pictures folder. It creates a file, and that's where Lightroom runs from, is within that folder. And then there's a subfolder in there that has all the backups. So every time you back up from the program, you have a few options on how to do that or when to do that. It's backing up to that default drive unless you tell it otherwise. So my feeling is, if my C drive crashes, I'm in trouble because I got my active catalog and I got my backups there, so I don't want to do that. So I set it so that my Lightroom backs up to my external drive with all my images. And I have backups of my C drive, and I have backups of my external drive. So my Lightroom catalog is actually, at any given time, it's in 6 different places. And I have off-site, so this C drive and my external drive, the backups for each of those are off-site, and I've got one that's on-site, and I switch them on a pretty regular basis. So I guess the other thing to talk about is, how do you organize stuff? And that's an individual choice. Some people choose to do it just by date, and Lightroom defaults when you do the import dialog. It defaults to a folder with a date, and you could name that if you wanted to, but it's an individual thing because each of us shoots different subjects. So maybe if you do people, you might have babies and seniors and families. If you do travel, you might want to do it all by different countries, or maybe you want to do it by date and then by country. So I have different categories. So let me just go over and I'll show you. Right now we are looking at my main catalog, and as you can see over here on the panel on the right, this is my images primary drive. That is grayed out because it's not live, it's not active, but Lightroom knows that these images are here. These numbers are grayed out. Lightroom knows that there should be X number of images in a given folder, but it's not here, and you can see the question mark indicating, hey, I don't know where this image is. So I have different categories for things that I shoot, bar mitzvahs, different events, my own family personal stuff. Some people like to do separate catalogs, say, okay, just my personal stuff and just my work stuff, or some might do just your travel stuff versus just your portraits. I think just to make life simple, if you're looking for a picture, you have one catalog, and that's where you look, and it's somewhere in there. Two ways of importing images. This is just basic Lightroom for whatever you're doing. You can either use Finder or Explorer and just put them into a folder, and then when you have the Lightroom import dialog box open, you would do an add images so that they stay where they are. The other option is to do it through Lightroom, and Lightroom you would choose copy then, and then on the right hand side you would tell it where you wanted to go. And one of the things that's I find is important about finding images later is doing work now, so that when you first get back from a trip or any assignment that you're doing, while you're doing the import, if you add global metadata, so any keywords that would be applied to everything you just shot. Like if I was just in Burma or Myanmar for this trip, you could put that down as a keyword and every image gets that. And that way you don't have to go do that later. So that later on you're going to want to put in temple or people or market or whatever the specific ones are, and again, if you go through and you could highlight a bunch of images, and then you could just over here you could add a keyword, and that's going to be applied to all of the images, and that saves you time now, so you don't have to do it one at a time to do it, and then when you're searching for images 6 months, a year down the road, it's going to make life a lot easier for you. So the other thing that I apply on import is copyright metadata template. So I have a few here. The one with the copyright applies all of my info, and every image gets that. So everything that comes in, then I don't have to worry about it. It's got my contact information, so people can find me if they see an image and want to publish it. So it's just trying to make life simple to do something once. You create a template once, and then you can apply it for each time. So you know, if I'm downloading bits at a time, I might put, okay, well, this whole group was in Malaysia, and that's a keyword that's going to be there. And then I'll go through and I'll do smaller groups for specific things like the market or whatever. And then as you go down almost to an individual basis, or you know, maybe you shot 20 images of a given monument, you would put that monument down there. And there are a couple of ways of doing it. I use the IPTC metadata. So on my finished images, they all have a headline and a description. And the description files it like the caption. The headline is a title for some of the pieces that the art pieces I sell online. And then I go through here and I put down where it was taken and the city and the state or the country. In Singapore, it's its own city and state and country and whatever. But again, when you're doing a search later, that helps you find stuff. So I usually enter the keywords here. If you know, like I have when I'm prepping images for one of my stock agents, I have some set keywords, certain terms that he likes. So I have them here as a keyword set for travel, the VST Travel. It's VST Associates is the name of the agency. So you can see tourist and holiday and history, tourist destination, vacation. Those are all things that he feels are important words. So I have several sets for that. I have one for wedding photography, and again, it's to make life simple. As I'm going through, when I'm editing, I am first pass. I'm going through. So actually, the process is I talked about the color calibration, and I would apply that to everything. Globally for each group that I do. Then I would go through and I would just mark the rejects. And if you're in Lightroom, I'm going to go, before I hop over there, I'm going to show you my secret weapon here. How many of you know RPG keys? Not familiar? Okay. They have different key sets, 16, 22, and I think 54 keys. You just plug it in with the USB, and you can program the keys to do any of the Lightroom steps. So instead of you taking the time to move the cursor over a slider and click and drag, you just hit a key. And when you do this multiple times on an edit, you save a lot of time. You can also program it to I usually program the ones that Lightroom does not have a keyboard shortcut for, and I highly recommend you use the keyboard shortcuts, and I'll be talking about them as I'm going through today. But certain, like exposure down, I find that just clicking the option 2 and here, and then exposure goes down, and you can control how much it goes down or how much it goes up. And you can control what key does what function. You can do contrast and clarity. You can also put in your favorite or your most used presets. And that way you say, oh, this image could use that. You just hit this key and it's there. And it really is a time saver. So I strongly recommend that. So right now we're looking at the same images. These are just local on my hard drive. So now I can click on any one and get I won't get an error message. So I can use the develop module. When I'm going through and doing the edit, first thing I'm looking for is what's not good. What is a little soft, or if the exposure was just off. I'm often just fine-tuning exposure with that target and just going a couple of times, and then without the target, and just take a shot or two just to get the exposure right. And those are just instant deletions. But as I'm going through, I'm thinking the fewer keystrokes, the better. So I would rather use a shortcut key, which is X, to mark something as a reject. And say you have 1,000 images, I would rather hit the X key 200 times than the P key, which is for pics, 800 times. So I'm just sort of going through right away, doing a quick weeding through. And if something strikes my eye as, oh, this is good, or worth working on, or whatever, that might get 1 or 2 stars. And then as I'm going back and really refining some of the images, I would do more. It would probably get to 3 stars if I spent some time with an image. As I'm going through, if I didn't want this, I usually, I'm in the library mode, library module. I find that is faster because when I'm in develop module, you'll see, if you just look down at the bottom of the image, as I'm going through these images quickly, it's pretty quick here. If I start again and I'm hitting the D key to go to develop. If I go through there, if you look at the bottom of the image, you get that little loading thing, every image, and I find that very annoying. So I'm using the E key to go back to the loop view in the library. And what I do is I am usually with the quick develop panel open in the library module with the loop view. And I'm just going through and then looking at stuff. If I didn't like it, I would say X. And I also have, I have this set up here. These the filters. Right now they're off. When I turn it on, it is showing me unflagged photos. So if I go to an image and I click on the X key, it's rejected, but it also disappears from view. So I don't get bogged down with the bad stuff, the things that I don't want to see, because there's nothing worse than when you first come back and you look at the collection and say, oh, this isn't good, that's not good. But once you get rid of all the not great exposures or things that weren't quite as sharp as they should be, it starts to look a little bit better. So I like to have that uncluttered view. So if, for example, we went through and I did X here and went through again and just did the X, at the end of the process, I would change my filters. I would go to the grid module with the G key. I would change the filters. I would turn off the unflagged by clicking, where am I? Just clicking this here off once, and then I would turn on the reject flag, clicking that, and all you see are the rejected photos. And they're grayed out. The one the only one you see clearly is the one that is selected. But I want to take a quick look at everything. So I would do a select all, Command A or Control A, and that removes that grayed out look. So I can just go through and say, yeah, I want to get rid of these. And when I do that, then I would hit the delete key, and I would delete from disk. So you get the question, do you want to remove them from the catalog, which is taking them out of the catalog, but the images are still sitting on your hard drive, or do you want to delete them from disk? And my feeling is, if it's not good enough for the catalog, I just don't want it taking up space, I hit delete from disk, and that's it. So the goal is just to work down to the best ones. Okay, I wanted to show you, let's see, I made a collection here to work on a few images. And I hit the D key to go to the develop module. And this was an interesting scene. The light wasn't really that dramatic, but I kind of like the activity down at the waterfront. So I'm going to close the presets here. I'm going to go down. You know what? I did not do a lot of work to this in Lightroom, but I took it into Photoshop and I did some other work there. I felt like there's a lot of extra space in here, and colors weren't as vibrant as I would like. So I took it into Photoshop, and I used Content Aware to shrink the distance between the banks and the far side of the river, and I boosted contrast and saturation and some sharpness, and
so it's not possible to do that in Lightroom, that same effect?
No, you're limited to certain things that you can do with Lightroom. Mm-hmm. So there are times I like to work within Lightroom whenever possible, and I'm going to show you some examples of when I could and when I couldn't. But it's very easy to move from Photoshop into Lightroom, and basically what you would do, like for this image, you just do Command E as the shortcut. When you set up your preferences, which you would do through here, Lightroom, on the Mac it's Lightroom, on the PC it's down at the bottom of the Edit drop-down menu. But if you set the preferences, you can determine your external editor, what size, what kind of files you want, what color space you want, how big, 8-bit or 16-bit, and the resolution. You can also set your second one. The one that's set in here is the one you're going to get when you do Command E, the shortcut, to edit in. This one down here is like your second choice, and it would appear in a list of options. And those options are going to probably be a lot of your filters, your plugins that you've added on. So anyway, Command E would just open up Photoshop and allow me to work there. I do what I'm going to do in Photoshop, and then you save it. You just do a Command S or File Save, and Lightroom will bring it back into Lightroom. The image gets saved, and it's cataloged in Lightroom right back next to where you were. So you're not losing anything there. If you do a file and save as, thinking, oh, I'm going to be smart, I'm going to rename this or whatever, then Lightroom loses track of it, and then you're on your own, and you would have to import that image into Lightroom. Whereas if you're just doing it through here, then it's just easier to let Lightroom manage it for you. So if you decide, oh, I don't want to work on this image, you can close the image. Just Command W is the shortcut for that. Without doing any work, you're not saving anything, and the image is not created, it's not saved in Lightroom. But if I just as is here, if I do a Command S, that saves it, and then Command W closes it. When I go back to Lightroom, you see right here it's creating this. And it's called Edit, and you can change the editing, the nomenclature here. Edit 2-PSD, because this image here is edit-PSD, as opposed to the raw, which is a CR2 file. So that this particular image, or I should say this one, had most of the work done in Photoshop. And what I tend to do in Photoshop, in general, I have a bunch of plugins, but I don't necessarily work directly from Lightroom to the plugin, because some of them, like On1 and McFun, will make these layered files, and then they'll save them as layered files, and they're big files. Sometimes I have the Nick suite, and occasionally, if I know I just want to do one thing in there, like go to Vivesa, that's good. Or if I want to do Color Effects Pro 4, that has layers within it, and it doesn't seem to make as large a file, so you can save stuff. But I typically find that I'm going to Photoshop for any of my plugins, and I'm doing the work there, and then I flatten the image. And I know that's a destructive thing, but I commit to it, because I don't want tons and tons of file space being taken up, and I generally don't go back to the images. And if I do, I can go back from the existing one. I could go work on this image. This is a PSD, and if I took this into Photoshop Command E, it asks me, do I want to edit the original? And if I wanted to edit the original, if I knew I had saved a layered PSD file and I wanted to go tweak something, yeah, I could go back into that. Or I could choose to edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments, which sometimes after Photoshop, I'll bring it back in. I might do a little horizon leveling, or maybe a little vignette. So if I'm going to output then, I may want to keep those more recent adjustments that I've done. All right, so speaking of Nick, I'm going to show you a few things here. So this was one, actually, we'll go back here. This next picture was taken right from the very top here. I went across the river, and it was like 8:30 in the morning. It was hot and humid and hazy, and didn't see a whole lot. The previous shot was from the night before. So I tried to do a few things in Lightroom. This is what it looked like on import. And I synchronized it. I did a white balance, so changed the color a little bit, and I added some clarity and some more clarity and some more, and then I had a spot on my sensor, so clean that up. I wasn't thrilled with it. I thought it was just missing a whole lot. I saw more, or I felt more when I was up there. So I said, let me see what I can do. I was thinking, well, the tonal contrast or detail enhancement, detail extractor with the NIC. So I brought it into to the NIC, and I did a few things in there. This is the first edited version, and it certainly pulled out stuff like I didn't even know the sun was in my image before, because the mountains weren't in there before. So that was helpful in getting things out, but I felt that it was, I don't know, not totally, wasn't thrilled with the colors or the reality base, and it wasn't doing exactly what I want. So I played with the temperature a little bit.
What did you do to get the mountains to come out?
I used the NIC color effects and detail enhancement, detail extractor rather, and I think pro contrast filters, a couple of filters within there. And that is the challenge. When I do this stuff and I flatten the layer, I don't always remember everything that I did. So anyway, it happens. I sort of go with it. If I'm happy with it at the time, that's good enough. So it was okay, but I thought, well, let me play with it some more. So this is the, I guess you call semi-straight version. Then I started getting a little bit wild with that. Took it into Topaz Simplify. I was playing around with that, and came up with this. And then I wanted to prepare it for competition. I have an action that has puts a key line, 2 key lines on the mat. And these, as we're looking at these are all bigger files because they're all Photoshop files. So I have multiple files, but Lightroom does allow you to do things, the virtual copies that are really not taking up any additional space. So when I was showing this, some friends were saying, well, what about more of a panorama? What would that do? So I went into to this and just cropped further, and I thought it was interesting. It's another option, but I can save it. Actually, this one is a PSD. On a bunch of these, I had done just some virtual copies and done cropping. So let's see. When I started with this one, I first removed. Let me go back. You see, there's a lot of history. This is the import. There we go. That was the original. I will say, when on this trip, like I said, I was trying to travel light, and I own a 70-200 2.8 lens, and I absolutely love it, but I don't like carrying it. So I left it at home, and I said, okay, my 24-105 is my main lens. And there were several situations here where I was able to crop. I have the 5D Mark III, and it's a nice big file, and so when I crop, I still have a lot of image detail and data to work with, so I was pretty happy with the way things were turning out. So this was one I said, okay, got to clean it up. This is more of a horizontal image. I added some clarity, played with the cropping, and Lightroom, in the history, it's got all of these different steps. So just a whole bunch of cropping, spotting removal. And just, I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, the spot removal tool is very handy. The Q key is a shortcut that gets you into there. I usually zoom in first, and then if I hit the Q key, you get your circle. You do the left and right bracket keys to get stuff down, but that's taking its time because it's such a big thing. So just slow down here. Maybe I want a little bit bigger. And you just click on the image, and it picks an area that it thinks will be okay. And if you like it, you keep it. But if not, you can just tweak the position of it. And I usually have it set to be on the heel. But you could do clone or heel. I usually do healing. It makes for a smoother transition. And to get out of that, you do the Q key, and then the space bar again zooms back out. So I did a bunch here, and then I wanted to take it out into Photoshop, and I used the Nik Silver Effects Pro, and was playing around with varying contrasts. I usually start with their presets. Most of the plugins have some decent presets that make for a good starting point, and then I can fine-tune things along the way. So I liked that, and I entered that into competition, and people were saying, well, you didn't leave enough room on the right. You got to leave more room for the boats. So I went back to the original image that's cropped, and I took it into Photoshop, and I removed the trees that were over here. But I've been a little bit too lazy, and I haven't gone through and dust spotted this one. So that's something I got to get around to do. But the beauty of Lightroom is that you can have all these different options, and everything is here, and you can have different versions, and especially when you do the virtual copies, you're not taking up any additional space. So it's handy. Here's one where it was just Lightroom. Woke up one morning, went out to the back of the hotel, and just saw this view, and I liked it, but the meter was a little bit fooled, I guess, by all the mist. So I was playing around with the exposure and just adding more. And then I got into some clarity. And these are just all effects that are done in Lightroom. Then I wanted to enhance the colors a little bit. I did it first with vibrance, which is a little bit more subtle than saturation, and usually does not affect skin tones as much. So you can add some color. You can get greens in your backgrounds or whatever without messing up people's faces in pictures usually. But then I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to add some saturation, so I did that. So in this case, Lightroom was enough of the tool that was available for me. Didn't feel the need to take it out and do other things. So here's an image that I started in Lightroom, did a bunch of things. I was wandering the main market in a town called Bago. It's about 2 hours north of Yangon, which is the main city there, the former capital. Burma has many former capitals because each successive dynasty moved the capital to a new location to, I guess, put their own stamp on it. So the current dynasty built a new capital and moved out of Yangon about 5 years ago. But anyway, this was just off the main drag, the market where I had been photographing in the morning, and I walked down a dead-end street, and then it led into this, and I was intrigued by it, so I got the shot, and then that's where I fixed the color balance based on an earlier shot I had done with my the passport color checker. And I played around with the cropping a little bit and a little bit more. Removed a couple of spots, and we're up to here. And then I said, well, there's other stuff. The Lightroom 5, the spot removal tool got better. So I was able to remove some things, but there are these telephone lines that are going across here and right here that are a job for Photoshop. I try and do what I can in Lightroom, and then when it's time to move, it's time to move. And because sometimes you can waste time if you try to do spot removal when you're in Lightroom, when you should be in Photoshop using Content Aware and the healing brush. So I do recommend presets, whether they're prepackaged or somebody has offered for free, or that they're selling or whatever, or creating your own, which are pretty easy to do. But if you have certain things that you like to do, I very often like to finish images off with a vignette. So as I mentioned, I just have those 3 presets set up to just do it real quick. But presets are a time saver. Again, if you like black and white and you want to try and do it all in Lightroom, you can go and you can mess with we'll go to, well, first let me show you something here. You may or may not know. If you have an image selected either in library or develop module, if you tap on the V key, that goes to a black and white mode. If you just want to see, well, what would this look like in black and white, and then you can determine if it's worth playing with. And again, the V key turns that off. And the D key takes you to develop, and if you go to this HSL color in black and white, and you go to black and white, you can play with all of these different sliders and do different things, or you can take the targeted adjustment tool and click on a certain part of the image and you slide down and it makes it darker. It would affect anything that's that color. Like I know that the fire was orange, maybe I want that part brighter. I click on that and slide up, drag up with that. But if you have something that you find works for you on a regular basis, make a preset, and that way it's there for you the next time, so you don't have to mess with the sliders. So, okay. Collections are a really handy way of dealing with images. You can do multiple things with them, and anytime you make a collection, it is not taking up additional space on your hard drive. Because what it is, it's just pointing to where the images are. So you can make one that You can group your images for certain things, like if you wanted to put all the temple pictures together, all the people pictures together, you can do that. If you wanted to, I have a bunch of templates here, excuse me, collections. So for book projects, for things that I register with copyright, I submit images through a company called Image Brief. It's sort of like a crowdsourced stock. I made a selection of images that I want. That's on the iPhone. Things that I'm thinking about sending to a contest. I made a collection there, and then which contests. You can do sub families of collections. I did one for the images. We're looking at a collection right now. I wanted to work on these certain images, so I made a collection of these images. So you can do different kinds of groupings. And I find as I'm going through things, I have a collection I call backgrounds, patterns, and textures. And if I click on it, it's very small here because there are only 3 images in this catalog that I put into this collection. Whereas when we're in my main catalog, I have a couple hundred images in there. Those are things I think, well, I might be able to use them as a background for something. So it's a great way to organize your images without taking up space. In the old days, if you say, okay, well, where do I store this image? It's a sunset picture of the beach. Well, do I store it in my folder called sunsets, or do I store it in my folder called seashore or water, or do I make multiple copies of it? With Lightroom, you can have one image be in multiple collections, and it doesn't take up any additional space. And if we go back, if I just go to all collections in this image, all the photographs in this catalog, rather, you can see, if I right-click on an image, you can go to a collection, and if the image is in any collections, you'll see them listed right here in the drop-down. So it's a quick way to see, did I do this or not? As you're going through, say you want to put together images for a slideshow, you can put them into a quick collection. And as you're moving along, a couple of ways of doing that. If you click on this little circle at the top right corner of each image, if you click on it, you're adding the image to the quick collection. And you can go across several images and just go all over and click on that and do it that way. Or if you are in the loop module and you're just arrowing through, I'm using the right arrow key to go through. When you want something to go into the quick collection, you just click on the B key, and that adds it to the collection. And you can just go through and put together a slideshow quickly like that. And then once you have the images, you can tap on the quick collection and you can do what you want with them. You can also make them into a permanent collection. If you were to do Command A right now, and then go down to your collections panel and just say you wanted to, if you wanted to make a new collection, you could just click on the collection here and say create a collection, and you could give it a name. And if you wanted to go inside a collection set, you could click on this box, and if you wanted to include the selected photos, you could have that box checked, and then this collection you create is going to go into your collections here. Collections are also handy for clients. If you have client projects, in my main catalog I have a folder called that, so you can have different clients and their selects for images or whatever in collections. If you are working on something and you know that you want it, say for example you want it to go into the book collection, I'm going to go up to my. You can change your target collection, okay? So what I was showing you before with the B key and clicking on the dots, that was putting everything into the quick collection, which is the target collection, and by default, you see this little plus sign right here. But if I was going through this folder of images and I wanted to just be adding things to my Burma book collection, if I have this collection here and I right-click on it and I want to set as the target collection, Then I can go up into my catalog. You see I have 61 images in here now. If I go into my catalog and I just choose this image and click on that, it goes into the targeted collection. You can see that now I have 62 images here. So you can add images that way. So it's just another flexible tool for you. One of the things that I find is very handy are published collections. I don't know how many of you are using those, but if you slide all the way down in the panel here to published services, you see a couple defaults, Facebook and Flickr defaults. If you have those accounts, you could set them up so that you can upload automatically. What I've done, my website is on Zenfolio, and there's a plugin by this guy, JF Friedel, and he makes plugins so that you can go right from a Lightroom collection onto your gallery, and you can create a gallery within Lightroom and upload the images, and it just brings everything in right up to Lightroom, up to the website, up to Zenfolio. And I have two settings here. I have one for large, which are the full-size images that I want to sell as fine art prints, and then I have a smaller setting here for images that I call it for support images that I want to appear on the website, but I don't plan on selling, but that's where the images go, but there's no need to be that large. So if we click on here, you can go to any collection and it keeps you up to date. So we can see I was messing around with this image before. Anytime you change anything on the image with exposure or any settings on the image or any metadata, it goes into this category called photos to republish, modified photos to republish. And everything else, if your collection is up to date, they all appear under the published photos thing. Anyway, that's what you do. It's a really good tool for keeping organized. And so I have each collection here. The main images collections or the galleries are here. They go on to Zenfolio, and then from Zenfolio I can make, I think they also call them collections. I can make a little folder of just my wildlife pictures or just the Burma pictures. All right, say you want to export some images. We'll just take a handful here, shift click to do that. If you go down to the export dialog box, I have a bunch of presets, and for different size prints, I have stuff, if I want to put it on my blog, I have a lower res version of it that has a watermark, and that goes to a folder that I show in Finder after it does the export, and then when I'm ready to just put it on the blog or actually on Facebook, then I would go to that little folder in the Finder with the low res, and then when I'm done with it, I delete them because I don't need them. The originals are still within Lightroom. I have export when I send images to my stock agent for review. I have one that's called low res stock submissions. It's just small stuff. He can look at them, tell me which ones he's interested in, and then I know. Then I go and I prep all the images, and when I'm ready to do it, then I send him the high res stock selects, which is a much higher version, better quality and all that. I also use export presets for doing slideshows. I use ProShow Web, and I pick the image. I make a collection first of what images I want to include. Then I highlight all of them, and I go into here and I do ProShow Web, and yeah, it would just go through here, and it goes right up, logs into my account, and sets them up there, and then I would add music and further edit the show there. One of the faults of Lightroom I find, or room for improvement areas, is their slideshow. It's pretty much just straightforward slideshow, one after another. You can have music. I learned after a long time that I was getting screwed up. Even though the feature is supposedly there since Lightroom 2, images didn't end with the music. I learned because when I have my second monitor connected, which I often do, it screws it up. But when you unplug the second monitor, or when I unplugged it, it was working the way it was supposed to. In the current version 5, you can do video clips. You can trim your video clips. You can put them and intersperse them with your still images and make a slideshow from that. You can output the slideshow in various resolutions to upload to YouTube or high res or MP4, whatever you want to do. It is available. All right. What I wanted to do now is we've been doing a lot of left brain stuff, talking tech and whatnot. I want to do a slideshow. I want to show you this that was created with these images, output to ProShow Web, and then created on ProShow Web, which is, for those of you who don't know it, it's an online site. They make a hard copy, a couple of versions of their program where you can edit slideshows and add video and stuff, do your transitions, have music, have layers, titling, or the easy way, which gets me, I'd say, like 90% happy. It's not perfect, but it is real time saver. You just put the images up. Hardest part is selecting music, and there are sources for that. There's some within their library. When you pay for an annual subscription, it's like $150. You have access to their royalty-free music, and you can use that, or you can use music from other sources. Like Triple Scoop Music is a good royalty-free source. I found another one. This time was an individual guy who is making his work available royalty-free. You know, you pay a set fee, and then you get to use it for whatever you want. So let's see. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.